Daisy Ridley wasn't surprised by the hostile backlash to Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And as we begin to make our final push towards the end of this sequel trilogy, more and more we see people just kind of like, yeah, we knew it was gonna mess. We knew there was issues. We knew. So Daisy Ridley, she's not surprised. John Boyega, he's got issues with his character. Luke Skywalker, he knew. Mark Hamill knew right away that there was a problem with the way his character was being handled. He knew when he wasn't able to get on screen with his other co-stars from the original trilogy, Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. He knew the Admiral Akbar brothers, Tim Rose and Tom Kane. They've had their issues. They knew that this was a stinker of a movie. And you know what? The one person who knew right from the very beginning was the guy who sat down to write this steaming pile of dog shit right from the very beginning. He's the one that knew before anybody got a script in their hand. That round-headed dipshit. He knew.
You knew what you were doing. You knew what kind of entertainment you're selling. And you wanted us all to be abuzz because it improves your ratings. It improves your market share. And it lines your pockets.
It's interesting.
How's it going, everybody? This is Phil. I'm over here on uprocks.com, and the author of this article is Josh Kerp. And let's just jump right into this and see what's doing, shall we? So here's Rey. She's very dismayed. She's traveled across the galaxy. She's looking for the great master, the Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. And imagine her dismay when she finds this hobo standing on the edge of a cliff, pissing in the wind. Disappointment. Can't even begin to describe the sense of emotion that she must have been overcome with in that very moment. And it carried right over into the next film. A film that was directed by this guy over here, Rian Johnson. So it says the trailer for Knives Out, starring Captain America, which is Chris Evans, Michael Shannon, who is General Zod, and a lot of knives, was met with universal acclaim on social media, which must be a strange feeling for Rian Johnson. I don't know what reaction was necessarily to this trailer. I saw it. It's pretty much like Clue. It's a whodunit. It looks a little kind of off the wall, kind of offbeat. It's got a great cast. I don't really know if it really did anything for me as far as wanting to go see it or even seeing it as a rental, a Redbox or a Netflix. It really didn't move the needle for me. But, look, if that's your thing, more power to you. So ever since The Last Jedi came out, his Twitter mentions have been a nightmare. Remember when Episode 8 had a lower audience score than Justice League? Well, look, as far as Justice League goes, that movie had Gal Gadot, all right? The wonderful, beautiful Wonder Woman. If you put Gal Gadot in The Last Jedi, I've seen that movie 4 times now, and that's including the Ivan Ortega cut. If Gal Gadot was in The Last Jedi, I might be inclined to watch that movie as much as 5 times. So that's saying a lot. And the less said about the fan remake, the better. So it's the fan remake of The Last Jedi, which I pledged a whole $25 to that. Not that Daisy Ridley is shocked by the backlash. So let's see what Daisy has to say. Says, I wasn't surprised. No. The actress told USA Today when asked about the controversy surrounding The Last Jedi, everyone's going to have an opinion now anyway on the internet, but I also think it's fair. If people hold on to something incredibly dear and think they know how it should be, and it's not like that, it's fair for people to think that they were done wrong. Thank you. I mean, what an enlightened thing for somebody to say. And I'm sure she's taken some lumps. She pulled herself out of social media. But from what I understand, it was just a matter of her saying that it was too much. She was too wrapped up into it. People are put too much emphasis on engaging in social media. So she just kind of pulled herself out of it. I never heard... The press likes to run with the narrative that she was trolled, much like Kelly Marie Tran. But I've never heard that actually be the case. Quite to the contrary, actually, as far as it relates to Daisy Ridley. Especially if those people are Mark Hamill, who came around to Johnson's vision. No, he didn't. He did not. And once this movie comes out and he's done with The Rise of Skywalker, Mark is going to open up once again, and trust me, he has plenty to say in regards to this whole entire sequel trilogy and how his character was handled. And once the dust settles and he gets out from underneath that contract and whatever the gag order is as far as Mark Hamill is concerned, who still manages to somehow leak things out, I'm sure there's going to be an interview somewhere down the line, and Mark's going to reveal some stuff that's really going to be juicy. So Ridley continued. It doesn't mean they were, ultimately, talking about that they were done wrong. Ryan's a filmmaker, and one person can't dictate how a film is supposed to be. But freedom of expression, sure. Which is kind of contradictory because Ryan's ultimate vision for The Last Jedi, which was dreadful, which is a black hole in the middle of a whole entire trilogy, why should he be the one who's taken his gospel? Why should he be the one who dictates how far a Star Wars trilogy can go completely off the rails, and and how a fan base can be completely obliterated and fractured in the midst of all of that? Talk about freedom of expression. She's right. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, even when the opinion, The Last Jedi is bad, is wrong. Which, this guy, what was his name? Something Burp. Josh Kerp, you're an idiot. The movie it's a complete steaming pile of garbage. So stop. Get off of that already. Stop defending garbage. It blows my mind that these people want to defend an awful movie. It's almost a fact. The Last Jedi it's a bad movie. It's outside of the Clone Wars movie, the animated movie. I might even rank that higher. It's bad. It's the worst of the bunch. The Ewok Adventures I found more joy with. And those were made for TV. It's a bad movie, dude. And it's so weird that these people pick this hill to die on, right? At The Last Jedi. It's this weirdo shill media that wants to just defend this movie for no real good reason. They're just completely fine with the way that everything was handled, the way the characters were disrespected, and how it really kind of just derailed any kind of a thread of a narrative going from one movie to the next. Rian Johnson doesn't even know what J.J. Abrams has in store for The Rise of Skywalker. He's completely in the dark. Nobody knows what's going on. They just passed the baton off, and it's not how you create a trilogy, not for the greatest cinematic franchise that's ever existed. Which has now been passed by Marvel. But Marvel's got their own problems on the horizon anyway. So anyway, also, cooling on the death threats, everyone. Jesus, this guy he's hitting every note here. He's reading right off the script. Ridley also discussed Rey's dope backflip in The Rise of Skywalker, which she said you couldn't do the full thing because there was a risk of breaking ankles. Breaking ankles? How do you even do the full thing? It's called special effects. it's all done on a green screen. She can't jump like that over it. The TIE fighters aren't even real. Holy shit. But there's a bit in the film where you see me upside down. It's funny because I did 95% of my stunts. Oh, this sounds familiar.
I did all my stunts.
I did my stunts because I thought that's what everyone did. And then
Tom Cruise over here?
No, I'll be the first me, not the next Tom Cruise. Thank you very much.
But that's the one thing I didn't do. People are like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, ugh. To be fair, it is so cool. Star Wars, blah, 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 opens December 20th. So, anyway, you know what? Daisy Ridley, look, I never really had a problem with Daisy Ridley. I know some people, they take their frustrations out on the actors who actually play these characters. Really, I haven't heard much of anything from Daisy Ridley this whole time. She's pretty much been a class act, and as far as I'm concerned, I really like the way she's handled herself. I mean, look, feel free to flag it out to me in the comments down below. I really haven't heard her lash out at the fans. She pretty much ran a dagger right through the hearts of all of those weirdo people who want to ship Kylo Ren and Rey, all those Reylos. She shot that down. She wasn't down with that, so that's cool by me. She's just like a young girl who's making her bones in Hollywood, coming up and doing her own thing. And she got cast in this movie. It's not her fault that Rey was written to be such an OP character who really doesn't struggle to earn anything. We'll see what they try to do with that as far as The Rise of Skywalker is concerned. I really have no faith that they're actually going to make her have some kind of real struggle. I mean, she's going to be even more powerful by the time we get to the third movie, and she's going to have more skills, and she's going to have powers that we've never seen before. And look, at the end of the day, that character was wasted potential. It was a bad carbon copy of Luke Skywalker, and they could have did something cool with it. They just kind of missed the mark, and it's a shame. The whole trilogy was just missed opportunity, and that's where we find ourselves now. So anyway, I like what Daisy Ridley had to say here. She kind of is just taking a measured approach to it and says, hey, yeah, look, I get it. I understand why fans would have this kind of reaction. They care about this franchise. They care about these characters. They care about these stories. They hold them near and dear to their hearts. And if they feel that something is amiss, they're going to be vocal about it. It harkens back to what Christopher McQuarrie had to say just about a year ago when he got tagged on a Rian Johnson tweet. He kind of got caught up in that whirlwind and said he lost all interest in, he was cured. That's what he said. He was cured of wanting to ever direct a Star Wars movie. But then he kind of took a step back and he engaged some of the fans, took it upon himself. He wasn't even involved with Star Wars. And he was in an interview and he said he understood why the fans reacted in the way that they did. Now, he didn't validate some of the awful behavior that some fans do demonstrate. But he said, look, the fans expect a certain thing. And if you go ahead and ask them to do the work and subvert their expectations, they're going to let you know it. And he owned that. He took responsibility for that. You know what I'll do? I'll close this video out with that interview of Christopher McQuarrie, because I think on the heels of what Daisy Ridley had to say here, I think it's very poignant. And he really makes a very well thought out, eloquent explanation as to why fans feel the way they do about these franchises and these movies and the things that they love so much as far as their entertainment is concerned. So anyway, guys, please feel free, comment down below, like, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in the near future. Until that time, as always, be happy, be safe, be healthy. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.
I want to touch on one last thing, which is I have viewed over the last few years a toxicity in fandom, and I believe you've experienced or seen a little of it in the last week.
Yeah.
What is going on where fans are just... I don't understand how people can't just enjoy things and why it has to be these personal attacks, and I don't understand what's happened.
I can tell you from my limited experience, I was sort of sucked into it recently on an internet. I got caught up as an innocent bystander in a bunch of Star Wars stuff. Look, movies are very emotional. They're extremely, extremely emotional. And a movie like Star Wars or movies like Marvel, where you're dealing with comic books, this is stuff that is coming from their childhood. It's the same thing as campfire stories, and in some cases, it's the very fabric of their growing up. It's something of which they're hugely protective. We go back to The Way of the Gun, the movie we're talking about. What I did in The Way of the Gun is I defied the expectations of the viewer. I subverted them right from the very beginning of the film. And I learned a very valuable lesson, which is that people tend to react quite extremely when you don't meet their expectations or you don't tell them the story. What I did in The Way of the Gun was I was asking you to figure it out instead of telling you what I wanted you to feel. Mass audiences, I'm not saying everybody, but mass audiences tend to reject that sort of thing. It's very upsetting. They've come to be entertained and they find themselves doing the work. And you confront that sort of thing at your peril. So I understand why they're as angry as they are. And I've been listening to their complaints about the movie that they're complaining to. I've actually engaged some of them directly and spoken to them. And it's kind of confirmed everything that I felt, which was we messed with their expectations. And when you do that, that's the reaction you're going to get. At the same time, I feel like the reactions are pretty extreme. And what I noticed that they were not able to separate was their being upset from their choice of how they were expressing it. So you would confront them on the way they were expressing it, and they would defend their right to express being upset. They really couldn't separate the two things. And that, I think, speaks to a bigger issue. I think that speaks to what we're seeing on virtually any issue on the internet. People are so busy defending their point of view that they're not really looking at the way they are defending it. And what we've done as a society is we're attacking logical problems with emotional responses.